Creating a content pipeline with Antora. Welcome to this talk here at FOSDEM. Watch this talk to learn how to use ASCII-Doc content from multiple sources for multiple websites and other downstream processes. In this talk, Fabrice and I show you what problems were solved in the XWiki project to allow for shift left in the creation of the content and to automate all the things. After describing why there was a need to change and what was used in the solution, there's a demo showing how to use the different building blocks together. Let's get started and let us introduce ourselves. I'm happy to introduce to you Fabrice Flore-Thebault. He's also working at Red Hat together with me on a very different project. So his superpowers were to know the ways within Red Hat about documentation. So it helped me a lot to figure out how to feed downstream processes, something that I wouldn't have been able to figure out without him. And he was willing to do things differently than before. So we tried out new stuff. And he was volunteering to use that in the XWiki project he was then working at the time. And the superpower of Fabrice is that he's both a technical writer and he can do programming and can do automation. That's probably due to his previous life. He's been working in the automation and Ansible world quite a bit. So that's a very, very valuable skill for a technical writer. Thanks for having that and bringing that to the project.
Today with me we have Alexander Schwartz. First, he is the author of the IntelliJ ASCII-Doc plugin that has Antora support, and that's a game changer for all the authors who are playing with ASCII-Doc and Antora in the world. So that's first reason for being a superhero. Also, Alexander has a meetup that happens, I don't know, one per month, maybe less, of our topics that are relevant to documentation. So that's a very interesting meetup.
What is the context in terms of content management and collaboration that we have here, Fabrice? Can you introduce us to that topic?
Yeah, so the big picture is, let's apply the shift left principle to content management. So I work at Red Hat, and at Red Hat, we have a successful development model, which is we develop things upstream, and then we transform the upstream project into a downstream product, and we call it productization or downstreaming. And moving the development effort from the product to the upstream project, that's what we call the shift left. Is this model also driving documentation? For the most part of it, the answer is no, that's not good. But it can change, and probably it should change. So how do we apply this model, this shift left model, to the documentation? So that's simple. It's you take your technical writers, who are usually bound to the product, and you let them contribute to the upstream project, and you let them collaborate with engineers. That's super simple. For upstream, there is an immediate benefit. It's the community has an enterprise-grade documentation. So it means better docs. Yeah, of course, better docs, because if you pay your writers and you don't have better docs at the end, what would be the sense of it? Right? Good docs has been identified commonly as a key feature for a successful community. So we have multiple questions answered that are saying that people look at the docs first when they come to a project. And good docs means people go a little bit further than just looking at the marketing homepage, and maybe they stay a little bit longer. So in the end, it means happy community. Good docs means happy community means probably users and then customers. So that's good. For upstream, obvious. But for downstream, because you're making things maybe more complex, or you put your technical writers in a place where they are not used to go, so that can be difficult. but too many good benefits. So the first one is you scratch multiple buffalo with one stick. You write your content once and you can publish it in multiple places. The second one is your content grows faster. Your writers can focus on enhancing the content that the community is producing, and they are more productive. So that's the second one. Third one is the time to market, because you automate everything, of course. So the documentation that is produced in the open, it lands immediately in the product. So, and that's something that is really important, is that you have merged your content in the project, and you have a documentation, a product documentation that has it directly. I mean, there are cases where the documentation is written in the community, but you don't have technical writer there, and the role of technical writer very often is a police role. It's like, yes, okay, that's okay for a community, but for a product documentation, you should not write it like this, like that. So it takes time. Something that you can write in 5 minutes, and it's okay in a wiki in upstream, then it needs to comply to more rules when you write it for downstream.
So how do we solve this pain or this problem?
So here we have two places where we can push left. Push left for docs, it means single sourcing. And single sourcing as much as you can. It means you write your content the most left as you can in the chart, and everywhere else you just reuse it and you don't re-edit it.
Left means upstream for you, right? Left is upstream, is in the open source, and immediately when the code is being written in the first place.
We have two opportunities to shift left here. That's the first one is to get content from the source code of the application. Exactly the content strings that are used in the user interface. So in the configuration field, the description field. This micro content, you can reuse it in the docs directly. So you can build your reference guide based on the strings that are present in the docs, and you can automate that. When you do that, if a configuration field is removed, then the configuration field is removed from the docs too. If there is a new field that appears, then the next iteration on documentation publication will publish that new field. So that's important. I mean, that's not the main focus of this talk here, but that's something where you can write ad hoc scripts, so with your preferred language. That's quite a common problem in docs, I believe. The other shift left moment, the other shift left opportunity is to have your content written in the upstream project and not in the downstream product. Really, you write the content upstream. You don't do any authoring of content downstream. It's not something where you copy paste files and you re-edit them. There is no human interaction there. There is no human adaptation. It's a fully automated process. And it's important. That's the fully automated process. This part is quite hard because you have to identify all the variations, and you have to find a solution for every single point where there is a variation in content.
Can you give an example for such a variation?
We have to dress up a map of these variations. And the first kind of variation, it's inline content. For example, your project has a name, your product has a name, it's not the same. The project has a version, the product version is not the same. In the project I work on for 3 years, for example, the project is called Eclipse J. the product is called dev spaces or Red Hat OpenShift dev spaces. The project is working on Kubernetes, so the orchestrator is Kubernetes. For the downstream product, the orchestrator is OpenShift. OpenShift is just a distribution of Kubernetes, but the product is not meant to be installed on Kubernetes, any version. So that makes a difference. So that's good for, let's say, a couple of words, a sentence maximum, less than a paragraph. You can work like that. Then you have block content. And block content, so it's more than one sentence, more than one paragraph, code block, image, screenshots, table, diagram, full procedure, a full set of procedure. It can be a lot of things. And you have three cases. You have content upstream different from content downstream. You have a content that is upstream and that is not downstream, and a content that is downstream and that is not upstream. So it means that at this point it's quite complex. And there is another problem, which is maybe specific to Red Hat, but I'm not sure. It's how can you use modern tools in upstream? How can you have some freedom in the tools that you are using in upstream when you have a downstream tool chain that is very specific and that has very specific requirements? And in my case, so in Red Hat's case, the customer portal publication toolchain is quite old. It's normal because when you have to move the toolchain for all the products. So it's something that moves much, much slower than a project. But then it's how can you provide how can you satisfy the downstream toolchain and still have something that is where you have fun upstream, where you have modern tools, and where you just don't do things that the community finds stupid, because the community, for the community, downstream doesn't exist. So you have also to think about that. It's for the community, downstream is not a reality. Downstream is just hidden, and you cannot say, let's do this for downstream, and believe that community will accept that. That's not the case. When it's stupid, it's stupid. So when it's stupid, when it's something that you do only for downstream, the chance that the community accept that is quite low, and that's normal. And I believe that's really good because it's pushing the writers to do something better and to re-question some of the processes that you have in downstream.
Yeah, and upstream is then the place to innovate, to try out new things that then eventually get adopted in other places. So move fast, innovate in the upstream project.
So in my experience, the upstream project is super innovative because we are using Antora, but not only Antora, we are using Antora extensions that are still in an alpha stage. And we are successful with that. So I mean, what we do in upstream is quite exactly the opposite of what we can do in downstream. So we can use alpha software, and we can be successful with it, and be happy with it.
So that is a great introduction to the solution, right? So what do we do in the solution then? What did we use to make this happen, this shift left? So
we have found everything that we needed in the Antora ecosystem. So that's the thing that is completely unbelievable. Not all the tools were there in the beginning, but now they are there. So now it's time to talk about them because it's almost everything out of the shelf. First thing is Antora in general. So Antora is built to have multiple publication. It's built for an upstream downstream model. So you don't need to add anything to Antora, and you can have a publication for upstream with one product name and a publication for downstream with a product name. And you can also have variation on content. It's all built in. That's the first thing. Then to content from some source code, there is a very nice extension called Antora Collector. And Antora Collector is more like a tool that lets you use your own code. So it's more a kind of a scheduler that will execute a script at real time and make sure that you run it every time. So we are using that, for example, for JDocs to a reference guide for the configuration of the application, for example. And the last bit is Antora Assembler, another Antora extension, very new, and which is just we are hijacking an extension that is there to produce a PDF, and we use it to produce something that is required to do a PDF, but that is very helpful in our case. So the Antora Assembler is taking an Antora website, an Antora component, an Antora something, and it's processing it and putting everything in one monolithic ASCII-doc file where all the Antora complexity is hidden. And meaning that at the end you can have a publication tool that is very simple, and you don't need all the complexity of Antora to do your publication.
So this Antora assembler is then the key for us to export it in a way that all our downstream processes can successfully work with all the content upstream. We talked about Antora and its extensions, how they solve things for you and the Eclipse J project. So what's the difference for you if a project picks Antora? What's then different than before? What are the unique features that you can benefit from Antora when using it?
I can speak in general, and I can speak also with a very specific thing in mind. It's because the project was using Jekyll before Antora, and we had problem with Jekyll, so we solved problem. We solved Jekyll problem with Antora, but there are things that are quite special. So first thing is Antora entirely decorrelates content authoring and publication. So you can have the playbook, so the playbook that is used for publication in one repository, and you can have the UI, so the theme, the CSS, the presentation layer in another repository, and you can have your content in one repository, multiple repositories, in branches, whatever you want. So it's really this thing. It's is like HTML and CSS. It's the same principle. It's content is living somewhere, presentation layer is living somewhere, and then the things that put all of that together is living somewhere else. So that's at the root of Antora. So that's the first thing, and then these things enables content variation. So, and Antora is built to handle content variation. So it's just made for that. That's the thing that is so good. So it's made for an upstream downstream model. It's made of that. So it's supporting ASCII-doc attributes out of the box, and it's built on the fact that you are using ASCII-doc attributes. It's using one feature of ASCII-doc which is includes, and it's using that everywhere. And it's so ASCII-doc is defining includes generally, and Antora is doing a classification of includes. So you have examples, you have images, you have attachments, you have partials, which is just a snippet of content that doesn't do a full URL. you can have also distributed components. So it means that you can have one repository where you have the contents and a distributed component where you have additional files. That's what we are using for downstreaming. So all the images that are specific to the downstream repository has specific examples, specific content, text content, images, so the screenshots that are just with the product UI on it, and it's as simple as putting the file in the correct directory, and there is not to think about it. When we were before as Antora assembler, we were juggling with directories where we overwrite content in this directory but not in this one. It was a mess. It was difficult for people who are, so even for writers, it was difficult to understand. But my file was overwritten. Yes, because this file, you must edit it in upstream first. And with Antora assembler, the upstream files are not in the repositories. They are really in a cache. So they are just downloaded at build time. They don't appear in the Git history, and there is no confusion. So that's one of the big win of Antora assembler. And pushing it further, Antora composer, it's the same thing. Is the content that you generate don't live in the repository. So something that is really interesting with Antora is that the contents that is in your repository, that is in your Git repository, is the content that you are authorized to edit. And that the content that comes from another content repository, you don't have to commit it into the repository. And Antora assembler and Antora code collector are using that as a cornerstone. Yeah. So there is less confusion for the writers, for the authors, for the contributors, because a file that is in Git, it's a file that you can edit. And the problems that we had before is that we had, let's say, we were talking a reference guide. So the output of the script was stored in Git. And then when we were doing an edit on another file, the script would update the file, and then it would end up in endless discussion on Git about like, but why are you committing this file? It's not in your content, etc. So it was horrible. That was endless discussion because it was not clear. And with Antora collector and Antora assembler, everything is clear. It's in the repository, you can edit it.
Yeah, and on the other hand, everything that's generated will never end up in the repository. Everything that's generated, it only exists in the code where it comes from, plus a shell script or whatever else you need to generate it, and never going to be committed to Git, right?
It's not committed to Git. We have a build artifact, which is the ASCII doc, the monolithic ASCII doc. And the tool chain require this build artifact to start doing its own builds.
And then this nice thing is then that Antora assembler, it creates an output that could have come from everywhere, and it doesn't really need Antora anymore to render. It's just plain ASCII doc that comes out of that, and everybody can render that. Any tool chain that could understand ASCII doc can render that monolithic ASCII doc file that's rendered by Antora assembler, right? If you say Antora is a great choice with collector, with assembler, still you have to do ASCII doc. So how do you think about ASCII doc and this single sourcing approach? Would you rather use another markup language, or are you happy with ASCII doc as it is today?
So Antora is so much based on features that are only in ASCII doc that it's difficult to imagine Antora for Markdown. And because it's based on ASCII doc attributes. There is no such thing in the Markdown ecosystem, or not exactly. So, but that's one thing. I believe you have projects where you can also use variables that are extending Markdown. So that's not impossible. But then the includes. Now I'm working on a project using Docusaurus, and it's Markdown extended. It's different. It's more complex. I find the ASCII-Doc is pretty simple with these include statements. That they are simple. They are enabling a lot of things, and Antora is based on it. It's one of the pillars of Antora is attributes. The other one is includes, and the other one is cross references. And these are three features that are very specific to ASCII-Doc. Then, of course, ASCII-Doc has also a very nice feature for the author. Then it's a matter of taste. So I know that we have a discussion with developers about the syntax, the formatting, all of that. So that's something where people can be very opinionated. So as an author, I really like ASCII-Doc because it's very consistent. So it's for inline stuff, the syntax is always the same. For block stuff, the syntax is always the same. The tables, there is one implementation of tables and not 20. The punctuation, it's very well defined, so that's good. You have extensions. You have Antora extensions. We talk a lot about them. That you have also ASCII-Doctor extensions, meaning you can add the diagrams. So croquis diagram, you can add them into ASCII-Doc. You have extension to do PDF, EPUB, to do presentation with Revit.js, to process ASCII-Doc files directly in your browser. So you have the ecosystem is very much alive.
We have created a small demo project which contains Antora, Antora Collector, and Antora Assembler. In this demo, I'll walk you through this project. The link to this project is also on the slide with all the links at the end of the talks. Let's have a look at the code. Like all good projects, it has a README, which walks you through what to find here and how to use it. While a real project with Antora is usually split into multiple Git repositories, this demo combines everything in a single repository as it makes it simpler to run local experiments. Splitting them in multiple repositories allows for advanced features and a separation of different responsibilities for different parts in a production setup. The docs folder contains the same component in two different versions. Each version has the standard Antora folder structure. The version 2 also uses Antora Collector to run a script and pick up the generated files as if they would be checked into Git. The start page is an Antora component with the special name root. In this example, it also is not versioned, so there is only a single version. Looking at the playbook folder, this contains everything to build a documentation site. It uses Node to install and run Antora and its extensions. All dependencies are listed in a packaged JSON file. There are two playbooks, one to build a production site, a second to build an author's preview from the local worktree to show changes which haven't been committed yet. The playbook lists, among other things, components, extensions, the UI bundle, and ASCII-Doc attributes. Antora Assembler needs another configuration file to specify how it should create a PDF. Optionally, it can keep the created monolithic ASCII-Doc file, so you can use it in an additional build step. As an alternative, one could use the plugin as a blueprint to create other output files in your own plugin. There's a very small demo extension which accesses the attributes of a page to further process them. In this example, it prints the front matter attributes of an ASCII-doc page on the console. The supplemental UI folder contains several small customizations for the default Antora theme. Depending on your production setup, a full custom theme might be better. Have a look at the Antora UI projects for details on how to do this. For this demo, it was sufficient to override some of the partials of the original theme with modified partials, for example, for the header, the footer, and the outdated page banner that I will show you in a second. Let's look at the site that has been generated. The start page doesn't have a navigation outline specified in the component descriptor, therefore it shows a default with all components and versions listed there. When I choose the content module version 1, I see a warning that I'm looking at an outdated version with a hint where to navigate to the latest version. On version 2, there's a link to a PDF containing the content of all pages in this component. On the page with the page attributes, I see some of the attributes that are available when rendering a page. Those attributes come in handy. They allow me to render information in the footer that links to the revision used to publish this page. I can also add a feedback link which opens a GitHub issue referencing this page and its version. This is a simple mechanism to offer users providing feedback to my content. At the top right, there's a link to edit this page on GitHub. When I go to a generated page, this page doesn't have the edit button as it has been generated. This is the end of the demo tour. Give it a try yourself to find out what's possible with Antora and its extensions. Thanks for watching this talk. We hope you found some things you want to try out in your current or next project. Here are some links to Antora and its extensions and a link to the demo repository. On the right, you see the links to our blogs. When you are watching this live at FOSDEM, we're looking forward to a vivid Q&A round. If you watched this as a recording, visit our blogs and get in touch by email or our social media accounts. We love to hear where you're using or plan to use Antora in your projects.
Ziki.
Hey, and we are live, Fabrice. We are live we have 10 minutes of Q&A time. Isn't it great?
We are live?
Exactly.
Yeah, we are live.
Yes.
Live, ça veut dire
Cool.
quoi?
So people can listen to us to us in the complete world, Eva.
So Fabrice, we talked about this earlier. Well, we don't have so many questions yet. So so you said Antora changed some things for you with the simplicity of the workflow. I think you first started with the bash script. That was the start.
Yeah. So in this year, so really 2022 was a year of big changes because a new version of Antora was published with the extensions, and then in the late 22 the first extension arrived, and they changed what we can do, and it's an enormous change in simplicity. So I was doing the training since 3 years with, I don't know, 800 lines of bash, sed, grep. It was breaking very often, so lots of time to fix stuff because it's, the content is broken. And now we have something that is done in a few lines of YAML, just configuration file, and there is still a little post-processing bash script, but it's less it's 50 lines. It's small. So the simplicity of the process has dramatically improved. I'm really and there is another extension that is coming. It's Antora Atlas. We didn't talk about it, huh?
No, we didn't. Yeah.
And Antora Atlas, it's something where you can build just a subset of a documentation website. So you can have a very large customer portal, so to say, or something like that, with a lot. Big amount of documentation, and if you want to build all of that in one go, it takes a big amount of time. But with that extension, you can just build a part of it, and it goes much faster. So that's really something that's getting in the good direction to onboard Antora in large documentations or in companies that have a large population of documentation. So that's really good news.
And I saw that with the Spring Security project. I think they are one of the users of the Atlas extension for Antora. So that's very interesting. But you said you did some post-processing with Bash from the output of the assembler extension, probably. And I'm now preparing this in a similar way for the Keycloak project. And for that, I kind of forked part of the assembler extension and put all the post-processing that I needed to move that from a Bash script that I had also first, move that to the JavaScript code. And that makes it a bit more maintainable. I have more syntax support, some validation support. And yeah, so all these extensions that are there now.
And so maybe one question for in the scope of Antora Atlas that you talked about, that you talked about just before here in the Q&A. Do you know already some projects that you could be starting to use them to use it right away in order to have a real world use case, or maybe organization you're talking to that?
I would suggest to go to the lib chat of Antora and ask there. I don't know for it's getting developed right now, so it's like the author is saying every week, "Hey, I have a new alpha version, and now this is working." And so it's just really impressive because you see the progress every week, and it's also. It makes me reread some part of the ASCII doc code and rethink how everything is done. So it's like really it's really impressive how it's a continuous improvement process that is getting with that, so that ASCII Doctor will become better from there. But so it's probably done for someone. But I don't know exactly who for.
Yeah, but it's Spring Security. That would be the example, and I can post a link to the chat so people can follow up on how that's going there.
Yeah, definitely. In the meantime, we also have one question from Benson on the chat, which is about is Antora accessible for screen readers?
Well, I haven't tested this with screen readers, so I'm not a pro. So I need to be very cautious what I say here. Thing is, it's plain HTML that helps, so it's not so much JavaScript and single page application. That's probably also a help. And I'm not sure if they put in so many ARIA tags in there. I know that in the standard theme there are some, but if you want to really optimize it for screen readers, you might need to put some more effort into that to see that the ARIA tags are right. When it comes to the theme, to the, I would say, outline, navigation, and all that stuff. Put ARIA tags in the content in the middle. I would say there's, maybe ask in the Zulip chat. I'm also on the Zulip chat there, and then get pull requests into the standard Antora theme.
Yeah, the one thing to know is that there is a default UI, so a default presentation layer, but you can change it. There are some projects who have made an entirely different UI, But I believe it's like accessible like most of the documentation framework that we have now. But I'm not sure how to give a very prescriptive answer to that because I have not watched it.
Okay, thank you.
I'm not sure how to give a very
And,
answer to that.
and Fabrice, what kind of extension did you add? I think you added an external link checker extension to Antora in your project to do some additional validation.
Yeah, I used the composer. So with the composer extension, you can call external scripts, and I did that to call Veil, so the Veil style guide linter, to verify that the content is compliant with the style guide, and I'm calling also HTML test to verify the external links. So Antora is already checking all the Xrefs, so if there is a broken Xref, you will have a warning. But I did something to test. So that's the real nice thing is that Antora is in charge of. So before that, we had Gulp, who was launching all of these additional tools, and here it's Antora who is in charge of everything. So it's in terms of who owns the process, it's something much more clear, and also it's reuse. So the checks that you had in the upstream project, they are run in the downstream project also. So that's really nice. You have to write your pipeline at once. Sometimes it's so cool. So the difficult thing is to understand what belongs to the module, so the Antora YAML, or what belongs to the playbook, the Antora playbook, the YAML, and what happens in which area. It can be confusing at the beginning, but
yeah, it's like the playbook is the global configuration that is covering the whole site, and then for each component you can have a separate configuration in the component or in the Antora YAML file. And this can be then specific to a version of that component, or always is specific to a version. Like if you have a version 19, then you have a Antora YAML file for that version 19 living in the 19 branch of your software. Then you have a version 20 component descriptor Antora YAML living in the 20 branch of your software. And they can have different validation rules. They can run different scripts. They can run whatever is necessary for that version to create the content that you want to show on your website. So it's really a divide and conquer here. One thing is the global stuff, and the other thing is the version specific stuff.
Okay. So the session will end in about 1 minute. Then we'll go to the next session, which is about Tribe. I think content structuring and collaborative framework. So if you want to ask further questions, we will have a room which will pop up in the chat of the room right away, and you will be able to access it and talk talk to the speakers. So talk to Fabrice and to Alexander that are there.
And
so thank you for the both of you, and I hope that you will see each other. So you're not coming to FOSDEM, right?
Yeah.
So maybe next year.
Cool.
Thank you.
See you there. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Welcome, everybody.
Là, ça s'est arrêté tout. Tout le monde nous entend pas.
Maintenant, il y a des gens qui vont peut-être venir là dans l'écran. Ou peut-être pas. Non, il n'y a pas. That's the surprise.
Yes.
Okay, now the room is public and now other people could join in. Let's see if that happens or not happens. think there were like 6 or 7, well, maybe 2 people really watching this talk at the moment. Let's see how that works.
I made they will go to the next talk probably. So
Yeah.
let's wait. So let's wait, what, 5 minutes?
Yeah, I think so. Let's wait 5 minutes and then we the final statement in the chat saying welcome. Oh, sorry, goodbye everyone, and that's it. No new follower on Mastodon. One new follower on Mastodon for me.
You're on Mastodon? Do I follow you on Mastodon?
I don't know.
It's Harus.
Alles eins, ja. Mastodon. Ja.
At to the done. It's .org. Non, il n'y a personne qui vient. AS1. Qu'est-ce que tu fais là? Did you write something with the hashtag Antora?
No.
ASCII-Doc?
Maybe. Are you on?
No, it's just. Okay, so I don't have, it doesn't work now, my instance very well. Did you write something about FOSDEM?
Yeah, but you have to look in Mastodon.
Yeah, but it's just how to find users is just painful. So
Yeah.
my instance is offline, or I don't know.
What instance are you?
And I am so you can find me maybe.
Oh, okay.
That's a small instance. I believe nobody is coming there.
Yeah, I think so.
R0.
Oh.
That's me.
Yeah,
Voilà.
Official documentation service history pipeless.
No, the Chapril server is down, I believe. I don't know what happens if when you move the server from a server. Okay. So nobody here.
C'est quoi l'image à côté de nous, là?
Quoi?
C'est quoi les deux images à côté de nous?
Où ça? Quelles deux images à côté
Il y
de
a
nous?
deux images à côté de nous.
Où ça? Montre-moi où.
Une là, une là.
Ah, les images toutes grises, là? C'est un peu, regarde. Regarde, si je bouge, c'est ma main, mais en tout flou, t'as vu?
Ah ouais, c'est un miroir.
C'est un bout de l'écran. Et regarde, si tu vas là-bas, ça c'est la tête d'Alexandra.
Attends, ça va là?
We wrap up?
Yeah.
Okay. Up.